Let's just hop into business. Oil prices just dumping early this morning. Look at this, $60 hey, for Brent crude. West Texas is below 60. Well, like looking at 4-year lows here. Nigeria's benchmark 75. This is just bad for everyone. I want to remind people, China is the largest importer of U.S. petrochemicals due to their large industrial base. So for making plastics and so on and so forth. The United States, let's see how much longer they can keep this going. Gold, Dr. Abati's favorite commodity, climbing, early trading, not quite back to the $3,100 levels, but still above $3,000 for gold. So that, of course, there's the safe haven play, $3,032 in early trading this morning. Asia stocks safe for China, at least last we checked when we were putting these numbers together. We did see the Shanghai Composite Index maintaining positive territory, but everybody else, I mean, look at the Nikkei, 4.42%, big drop there. U.S. markets were actually green yesterday, midway through the day. Once Trump and his White House press secretary confirmed that the China 104% tariffs would take effect by midnight, they nosedived. China, no word from them. They are staying strong. U.S. markets falling in Tuesday trading. Something that needs to be pointed out is the yield curve. These are, of course, Treasury yields, bonds, every single one of them rising. And this is not what the administration wanted. The administration thought, and conventional wisdom, if people are cycling out of equities and going into fixed income, treasury bonds and so on, the yields are actually supposed to come down. But we're seeing a sell-off. There were some conspiracy theories that since China holds trillions of US dollar securities, they could actually sell off on these actual items and drive the yields up. But it actually looks like it's US corporate. So this is a worry for the US because of borrowing costs and what it means for the credit markets. Joe Bruxelles is a chief economist, I think it's RSM. He says, my concern here is that should yields continue to move higher, an over-leveraged hedge fund, private equity fund or private credit fund will seek a hasty liquidation as the financial shock unleashed by the new trade regime intensifies. That could actually happen. We'll see how yields move through the day. We've already talked about this. The U.S. cumulative tariffs on China, 104%. China, it says they're standing strong. They're not backing down. South Korea has announced that they will be giving additional funding of $2 billion to their automotive sector due to these tariffs. They're trying to give them more support. It looks like Japan might be doing that. In fact, there's supposed to be an emergency meeting between the Bank of Japan, the Finance Ministry, and a couple other agencies over in Japan on this particular matter. Central bank decisions. We saw some central bank decisions over the last 24 hours. Uruguay actually hiked their benchmark rate by 25 basis points to 9.25. They were citing higher inflation. Meanwhile, India, they cut by 25 basis points to 6%. Also, Kenya cutting by 75 basis points to 10%. They, of course, citing concerns with where we are with the global economy. Now, I wanted to bring this up. There's been a big clash between Elon Musk on the left and Peter Navarro on the right. Peter Navarro is the trade advisor in the Trump administration. This all started, there's been some back and forth because, you know, Musk wants to see zero tariffs between Europe. Navarro is a big China hawk. He is the chief person that is behind a lot of what you're seeing with these tariffs. It started with Elon Musk lobbying this in his direction because Navarro is a PhD economist that went to Harvard. Musk here says a PhD in economics from Harvard is a bad thing, not a good thing. Results in the ego brains is greater, and it's a big problem. Then when Musk went on television, I think it was in Italy, and said that we should get zero tariffs, Navarro responded on TV saying that Elon Musk is a car assembler and he just wants to get cheaper parts from abroad. Take a listen to that.
When it comes to tariffs and trade, we all understand in the White House, and the American people understand, that Elon's a car manufacturer. But he's not a car manufacturer. He's a car assembler in many cases. If you go to his Texas plant, a good part of the engines that he gets, which in the EV case is the batteries, come from Japan and come from China. The electronics come from Taiwan. The tires come. What we want, and the difference is in our thinking and Elon's on this, is that we want the tires made in Akron. We want the transmissions made in Indianapolis. We want the engines made in Flint and Saginaw, and we want the cars manufactured here. It's like this business model where BMW and Mercedes come in to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and have us assemble German engines and Austrian transmissions. That doesn't work for America. It's bad for our economics. It's bad for our national security. We want them to come here. And with Elon, it's fine. He's a car man. He's a car person. That's what he does. And he wants the cheap foreign parts, and we understand that. But we want him home. We want him home for our national security and economic security, and everything's good with Elon.
As you can expect, Elon Musk did not react favorably to being called a car slimmer, and he reacted on Twitter. He says, Navarro is truly a moron. What he says here is demonstrably false. And actually, in truth, Tesla, a lot of their parts are sourced in the US. He followed up with another tweet actually showing proof of that. He said, Tesla has the most American-made cars. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. So this is, of course, has really escalated between the two of them. But one more quick point I do want to make, and I'm so glad that Steve Leisman, who is the senior economics reporter at CNBC, made this point. While the US is making all this noise about trade in goods, the U.S. capital accounts is getting dollars in because the U.S. has the deepest, most liquid capital markets on planet Earth. So you have a services surplus, you have a positive capital account, which as of Q4 2024 was to the tune of $10.6 trillion. So what are you complaining about? And what about the freedom of Americans to buy whatever car they want from any part of the world? I really love this point made by Steve Leisman. Here it is.
I think the vision is very blurry, and I think it's inconsistent. That's my problem with it. Do you want a strong dollar? Well, you can have a strong dollar, but recently, by the way, the dollar has been weak. Part of the way that we are the reserve currency is we run a trade deficit, Kelly.
Right.
And I honestly am not sure that they understand that in the White House. People send us stuff so that we can have their dollars. So they can have our dollars. That's the weird thing about all this, Kelly. I don't think that they get that the other side of the trade deficit is a massive capital account surplus where they buy our treasuries, they buy our stocks.
No, I think they do.
They buy our assets.
They know that means we overconsume, right?
Who's to say we overconsume? Who is it? This is the Republican Party saying we're overconsuming?
In the country, meaning we consume beyond, S equals I. We consume beyond
We consume what we want to consume. That's part of the freedom of being an American, isn't it? Who's to say we overconsume?
Based on the stock of investment in the country.
You can see that by looking at me, I overconsume, but that's another story.
No, listen, I do too.
Capital account surplus. That's our updates for today.
Yeah, we definitely haven't seen the last of the debates analysis around Donald Trump and his policies and the consequences. But it was quite entertaining yesterday to watch the markets, maybe because I don't have any skin in the game where the markets are concerned.
Should jump in.
I should, right?
Yes.
But watching the markets recover at the beginning of yesterday, our time, beginning of yesterday, and then as that confirmation came in about the 104% on China came in, everything turned red again because as of yesterday noon, everything was back in the green. And then as soon as that confirmation come out, it was just everything went in the reverse direction. But I suppose at the end of the day, we know that the markets themselves they never react well to uncertainty. So for now, we also have to be clear that what markets are reacting to is uncertainty and potential impending doom, if I may call it that. But it will be interesting to see how that bounce back happens. Now, a lot of people are referring to, I think it's a false comparison, but I'm going to throw it in here because it's food for thought. People are referring to Ronald Reagan, 1982, when the Dow Jones lost 22%, almost 23% in just one day of trading, and the kind of bull run that followed after that. And so the Trump administration is pushing that and saying a dip is not always a bad thing, that we're restructuring things. Listen, I can't blame them. That's the honest truth. Because here in Nigeria, we've been talking about moving from consumption to production for a very long time. We do protect our own critical industries. It's just unfortunate that it leads to this level of global disruption that nobody was prepared for. I personally still feel that it's time for the Global South, I say this every day, the Global South to come together and figure out what is best for the global South. These are the headwinds coming at us, no problem, but no use, expending all of this energy, fighting whatever they're calling the art of the deal, right? Because according to Trump loyalists, this is his attempt to bring people to the table, which he has done. He has brought a number of countries to the negotiating table, and we'll see what comes of that. But again, this uncertain period of not knowing whether these are the new rules of engagement or whether this is a negotiation strategy are really what create the biggest level of uncertainty. And that I criticize because I feel that this process, it's okay to come up with unpopular policies, but execution, implementation is everything. Be certain and run with it. But this pendulum swinging is very dangerous for the entire world because nobody can plan with this scenario.
Okay, it seems to me that the big story today is that Trump's reciprocal tariffs are to kick in today at 12:01 Eastern Time. And this is the reality. And the big story is about the reactions of the countries. Now, China now has a cumulative tariff of 104%. After China has said it was going to put a 34% additional, on top of the 54% that they had originally, on top of the decision that China had taken in December to stop export of rare earth materials to the United States, the decision that they took on agricultural materials and machinery from China. China, however, says is still open to negotiation. But Trump has said all options are off the table, no more negotiations with China. So what we have seen, or what we are seeing today, is the commencement of the trade war, an escalation on a grand scale. That's the big story. The second big story also is that Canada is in that space. Canada, for example, is also saying that tonight, 12:01 Eastern Time, as the American reciprocal tariffs are kicking in, they too will impose 25% tariffs on all auto imports from the United States that do not meet the US-Canada-Mexico agreement. So after tonight, after midnight, Eastern Time today, we will have a full-blown trade war on our hands. Now, as to reactions, we have cited some examples, but I find the example of South Korea interesting. South Korea, as a result of Trump's tariffs, we've seen declines in the market. By the way, all the markets are in bear territory, either in the US or in Asia-Pacific region. All the markets are in bear territory. But South Korea is now saying for their automotive industry, they are providing I think it's called 3 trillion won, which is about $2 billion to support Hyundai and also Kia. And as a result of that, that's one country responding. And I wanted to cite that example just to say that, okay, Nigeria has already issued a statement to say that SMEs will be affected, AGOA will be affected, they are going to have a meeting. Maybe they should look at the example of South Korea. Right. Is there any support that the Nigerian government can provide for businesses in Nigeria in the light of this Trumpism that we are all dealing with? Finally, Navarro and Elon Musk. You have reviewed what is happening. I think this is an indication that there is even a trade war inside Trump's administration. And also that there is chaos. Because you see, even apart from the fight from the rest of the world, they are fighting inside Trump's cabinet. All that talk about PhD is not a good thing and all of that.
I knew you would take offense.
I don't think Elon Musk
as a resident
or
PhD,
people who have never gone through a PhD process, I consider them incompetent to comment on anybody's PhD because they comment on what they do not know.
Course.
But however, this is chaos, clearly indicated. But Caroline Leavitt, at the White House press conference yesterday, said boys will be boys. This is a case of boys fighting. Well, Elon Musk is a boy. And Navarro, the special advisor, is also a boy. But this is not about boys. It's the fact that there is trouble, even in Trump's paradise.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Elon Musk losing over almost $150 billion.
I mean,
that's enough to be frustrated.
Of course.
Well, pro-tariff, anti-tariff.
Anti-tariff, back and forth.
Understandably.